I read 4,760 pages across these 13 books. That was 54 hours of audiobooking. Dear God, let me put these down. My biggest book was Dreams of Gods and Monsters by Laini, which is 637 pages, and my oldest book was not very old this month, and that was A Collegiate Casting Out of Devilish Devices by Pratchett, which was published in 2005. For the genres, I read 1 contemporary book, 2 sci-fis, 3 non-fictions, and 7 fantasy books. Then the nationality of the authors that I've been reading, so 1 author was from South Korea, 1 is from the Potawatomi tribe in North America, 1 is Egyptian, 1 is Chinese, 3 were American, and 6 were English. And last for the statistics is the format that I read the books in. So I read 1 book in mixed media format, so I did this both by physical book and also e-read. I read 1 book in hardback, 1 book in paperback, 5 books via audiobook, and 5 books via ebook. Now, into the book reviews. The first book I read in February was The Crustacean by Jang Jinyeong. This was a book that I got from NetGalley, and it was a very interesting little read. It is a translated book from South Korean, and we are following a young girl, teenager, who has been sexually assaulted, abused, and manipulated by an older man who turns out to actually be a senior in her older sister's work company. They have quite a big age gap of like 10 or so years, and he's even more senior. And we are watching this young girl as she comes to terms with her sexuality, not in a gender preference way, but just in a awakening as you go through puberty, and then how she then believes that this is a care and attention that is being given to her by this man. He deeply cares for her in her mind view, and so she believes they are essentially in a relationship, and it is looking at this, looking how it impacts her mind, both what he has done to her, but also then when people have saved her from this and she still believes in this love. And it's a very dark book, of course, but also more light-hearted than you would expect, because she herself doesn't see it as an issue and we are from her point of view. So a very interesting little read. On a lighter note, I then read Children of Memory by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This is the 3rd book in the Children of Time series, and no one is surprised I loved it. This one plays with time, so I don't know how much to say because of course it will spoil things slightly for the other 2 books. The overall theme of the series is that we are following different spaceships that humanity sent out from Earth to go and colonise the stars, to terraform different planets, to find life and to create life. And things go wrong and humanity's having a lot of situations back home. What a surprise. These people are now trying to survive on their own without humanity's backup from hundreds of light years away, which was minimal as it was, but still. In this book specifically, one of those ships finds what looks like a colony that has settled itself on a planet, and they want to observe and see how this is going before they go down and introduce themselves, because they have no idea what's happened here. And it turns out that there is a lot going on down on this planet, and we watch that unfold. As expected, I absolutely adored this. I love Tchaikovsky. I love pretty much everything he's ever written that I've ever read. I'm getting there on reading all of his work. I'm a little bit behind, there's a few to get to, but this was fantastic and I am so excited to read Children of Strife in March. Then a little bit of an unusual one, and that is SAS Band of Brothers by Damien Lewis. This is a non-fiction that was an unhaul from my dad, and this is all about British-controlled SAS members during World War II, how the SAS came to form, and how it was utilised across France specifically, with dropping the men down and parachuting them in, and then also how the SAS was then used to try and get justice from the Nazis who otherwise would have escaped. I say British controlled, we have people of various different nationalities in here that ended up working with the SAS, of course. It was a world war, so it's not just British soldiers that are in here, but it is the British SAS, and I found this a lot more interesting than I expected to. I thought I'd be like, yeah, that's pretty cool, but I actually got pretty invested in it, and it says on the synopsis that we follow some people in 1944, and a group of these SAS soldiers are executed when they should not have been under the rules of war. So then in 45, with World War II over, some that survived and their higher-ups, etc., are determined to enact revenge is possibly a bit too dramatic, but get justice for the unjust execution that was done. So, again, another darker book, but It was really, really good, really interesting and quite engaging. Then the lovely folks over at Book Break sent me Midnight on the Celestial by Julia Alexandra. Oh my gosh, I loved this. I expected to like it, that's why I requested it, but this was so much fun. How do I even start? Oh my god. The Celestial is a boat that sails away from the mainland of this country. It's all in a fantastical world, and magic is on board. The boat is magical in and of itself, and the staff members can control that magic to an extent, and they make it an amazing experience for the guests on board. It's like the ultimate first class. You get anything you want. Your kids can put on these little wings and can fly because they've been enchanted to do so. You have drinks that will do magical things to your taste buds, and it's a fantastic experience for the guests that go there. And it's not cheap, so it's primarily upper class people that are going. However, for the staff members, the magic actually harms them when they do it. And the entire reason that these staff members are on these ships is because people with this magic are tested when they come to 18, I believe, and these have failed the test and they want one more chance to keep their magic because the other option is to have it stripped from them. And of course this is something that is so intrinsically part of them, but the society sees it as a bad thing, and if you can't control it well enough in these tests, which are often rigged, then it is removed from you. In this book we are following a young woman whose father is the only one with this kind of magic, who happens to be on the country's council, in their parliament sort of thing. It's a small group, my guess is 10, I don't remember if they actually say. And he is the only one who has any magic. And she, of course, has magic. Her magic is resurrection, so she can bring back people who have passed for a short period of time so that you can speak to them and you can say your goodbyes. She ends up, after having been tricked, failing her exam, and her dad thought, oh, she'll just give up her magic and just live a normal life with me, but she is determined to keep her magic, so she runs away to board the Celestial to work on it, to try and earn the chance to keep her magic. And that's when, as someone who had been in the upper class and had previously boarded as a guest, this is when she then discovers the dark depths of what actually happens on this ship, and how the people are controlled, how the people are treated, how awfully these people who are just trying to get another chance to sit an exam, essentially, and who are providing a service whilst doing it, how awfully they are treated both by the upper staff members and also the guests. This was an absolutely engrossing book. I was obsessed with reading it. It is so well written and I just had such a fantastic time. It comes out on the 5th of March, so what date is it? Perfect. I'm filming on the 3rd, this video is going up on the 7th, and this came out on the 5th, so you can go and buy this now. Then it was time for my Discworld read of the month, and this was Unseen Academicals by Terry Pratchett. This is a wizard's novel. I guess it's not really Rincewind anymore. He's in this, but only partially. And in this book we have football being introduced to Ankh-Morpork. It goes very interestingly. So it's actually a really interesting delve into a Discworldian version of the real history of football in England. The way that it started, it was these quite violent matchups between different villages, and it would across a large area, and it got niched down into the soccer football sport that we know today, world football rather than American football. It was really interesting to see Pratchett's take on that and to put it into the Discworld universe. I do think that if you enjoy sport at all, then you should still enjoy this. If you don't enjoy sport, I know Becca from the Book Sanctum isn't the biggest fan of this one. If you like some form of sport, of team sport, then you will be able to get some enjoyment out of this. It's interesting to see how they interact and the training and all of that. I think that's really fun, so I do recommend that on that level. Also the background story, there's always like a backstory to these, and this one has a girl becoming a model, and she ends up being a wag, wife and girlfriend, so this one was just really fun, less serious than most of the other Discworlds. They're all fun, they're all humour, but a lot of them have a bigger underlying message, and this one still does, but it's primarily about sport, so I really enjoyed this one, no surprises there. And then, this barely counts, it's like 5-6 pages long, but a Collegiate casting out of Devilish Devices by Terry Pratchett. I'm barely going to speak on this one, I'm not even going to do like a little video review. It's fine, it's 6 pages of Discworld fun. The Dragon Wakes with Thunder by K.X. Song. This is the second and final book in the duology. This series is essentially a Mulan retelling, but with a lot of license taken with that. I love this duology so much. We have a strong, badass woman who consistently makes mistakes and is not just perfection. Instead, she keeps messing up, she falls for scams and tricks, she thinks that she's found a way for her to be free, and then it turns out that the patriarchy is still blocking her. It really manages to discuss pretty much every single point, whilst also having this woman who has magic powers and this giant dragon, and they're trying to save the world from falling into despair and everyone dying. It is just really well written, really engrossing. I absolutely flew through it. This gorgeous edition obviously helps. Look at it. And I really think people are sleeping on KX Song because this is just fantastic. Then I finally finished this series. This was my book for the 10 books that I have to read in 2026 or they will expire, i.e. be on hold. And this is Dreams of Gods and Monsters by Laini Taylor. This is a chunky book at 637 pages. So it wasn't the quickest book for me to get through. However, I ended up really enjoying this one. I listened to it via audiobook and ended up partly reading alongside with it as well, which was an interesting way to consume this. It had been a while since I read the second book, so it took me a minute to get back into the flow of the story, but I think this ends out this plotline, the storyline, incredibly well. We managed to get a happy ending that isn't an ending and there's still so much left in the world, whilst also we don't fully get the happy ending. It's a very nice balance that Laini Taylor has managed to come to. I don't want to spoil the first book, but I thought that the angelic appearance of some of the characters and the influence that it had on the world, as well as the demonic appearance of some characters and how the human world reacts to them, was very well done, very interesting. I also loved the bits where people were involved with some of the upper class rich people and how that unfolded. I thought that was very well done. This was just a really fun end to a YA series and I'm glad that I finally finished it out. Then I listened to the audiobook of The Serviceberry by Robin Wall Kimmerer. This book really delves into the importance of the gift economy and the ethics of reciprocity and how we can function without capitalism, and we don't need to live in this capitalist society to be able to gain from each other, help people and gain in return. It is a very interesting book. It obviously focuses a lot on her knowledge of Indigenous practices. She is Potawatomi herself. It's a very short book and one that I really do recommend reading, and it of course does talk about the serviceberry. It's a fruit that's been specifically cultivated in the past and I believe in the present as well by the Potawatomi and other Indigenous peoples, and it's a very tasty berry that people don't really eat because it's not been commercialised in its farming practices. So as always with Robin Wall Kimmerer, this was a really fascinating little book and I really do recommend. Then I listened to the audiobook of One Day Everyone Will Have Always Been Against This by Omar El Akkad. This is a really interesting discussion from an Egyptian man who has then immigrated to and is now an expat in the United States on the injustices that are being enacted around the world, especially in that region around the Middle East and North Africa, how this is then impacting people who do then immigrate and seek asylum in countries like the US and how they are treated, and also, of course, as the title suggests, the fact that at the moment people don't seem to pay any attention to what's going on, but one day everyone will say that they have been against it, very much like what happened with the concentration camps in Nazi Germany. How people say that they didn't know it was going on, but they're of course against it now. This is not a very long book, so I do recommend picking it up if you can squeeze it in. And I do think that all of Omar's points are really well stated and it's definitely worth a read. I'm really squeezing in like serious book and sexual Moby Dick in space. Hell's Heart by Alexis Hall. This is another one that was sent to me by the wonderful folks over at Book Break, so thank you very much. This is madness. So, as I said, this sapphic Moby Dick in space, we are following a main character who is wanting to escape the drudgery of their daily life, which we don't really hear much about. And so they decide that they're going to board a hunting ship. Where it comes in, like Moby Dick, if you don't know, obviously everyone knows it's about a whale. Moby Dick specifically is about the whale hunting that used to be incredibly prolific, especially in the US, to the point where we hunted, I say we as humanity, hunted the whale population down to ridiculously low numbers and we almost made them extinct. And we were hunting them for their spermaceti, which is an oily fat that can be used to power light. I do believe it was used for like gas lanterns and stuff like that. Gas lanterns. And this takes a lot of that. Even the stuff is called spermaceti, but it's a space opera, and so instead this is seen as like a magic power that is used to power electric devices and keep the space stones intact so that you can breathe and all of that. Like I said, this is fully set in space, so Earth is old, but one of the side characters actually comes from Terran, and so we have a little bit of that interaction there. Sapphic Moby Dick is because our main character is a very sexual being. I am someone who isn't a big fan of smut. Nothing wrong with it. Read what you like. However, I personally am just like, okay, I don't enjoy it, I don't disenjoy it, I'm just like, can we get to the plot, please? I'd like something to happen. So I'm fine with plot happenings, but this has a character who frequently has sex with people because they do not have the mental maturity to handle their own emotions, and they know this and they admit this. So there are a lot of mentions of sex. It's nothing particularly graphic in my opinion. As long as you're an adult, it's fine. The continued sex with certain people then obviously strengthens not necessarily an emotional bond, but a connection between the person, just because you see them more frequently than others, and seeing how that then impacts things on the boat as they are trying to rein in this big beast. So, similar to Moby Dick, I do believe, even though I've not read it, there's the Mobius beast. They've put an umlaut on the O, Alexis Hall. Is it meant to be Mobius? Because that's what my Germanic learned brain wants to say instead of Mobius. The Mobius beast. But that is supposedly like this fantastical, otherwise unknown, giant whale equivalent in this space opera world, that is this big beast that the captain wants to take down because it took her leg. They go on this long journey to get this beast, they capture other whales, leviathans, in the meantime. It was a very interesting read. It's actually made me tempted to read Moby Dick. I know that sounds insane, I do read big classics, so it's not completely out there, but it has made me tempted to read that so I can understand like the source material for the inspiration that this was. This was just an incredibly engaging book. I was so interested. Thankfully it has nice short chapters, which I personally love because I find it gets me clipping through a book. And I was just so intrigued about what was going to happen next, about learning about how they took down these leviathans and how they got the extracts that they wanted from them, how the ship functioned, the different technology that we learnt about. This was just a great time of a space opera. And if you're interested in this one, it comes out on the 12th of March, so not quite as this video is published, but next week you can get your mitts on it. Then I read a NetGalley book that has been on my radar and on my NetGalley list for far too long. I immediately went and requested it off of NetGalley when I saw the author pitch it on TikTok, and that is The Reaper by Jackson P. Brown. I'm going to bring in some people to immediately be interested because this is like an adult skullduggery pleasant. So, the plot. We are following a young woman and she is an empath. She can feel other people's feelings, and her gran always told her, she was an empath as well, and her grandmother always told her that there were magical beings, and she thought that her gran was just being eccentric, potentially her old age, and she was like, okay gran. And her gran passed away and she's living on her own, and she discovers that she can feel these emotions and these senses from creatures that do seem to be otherworldly, and she discovers that this world that her gran said exists is in fact true. Her gran was Jamaican and from St. Thomas's, and so apparently there is a supernatural link there. I believe that is in reality as well as in the book, and so that explains why they have these empath feelings. And our main character, she ends up getting into this world because there is someone who has this big explosion of feeling and she can't resist finding them. She's just so curious, she's writing down all these notes just to learn more about this world, and she needs to find this big explosion of energy. And it's not a creature that she's ever seen before, a warlock, a wizard, a vampire. She has no clue what this species is categorised under, and it turns out that their species is the Reaper, and they go and kill people on a hit list essentially, and she ends up partnering up with him as they enact these hit lists that are primarily on people who deserve it, so gang bosses, things like that, so they are solving crimes in this fantastical universe. She ends up exploring the downstairs, which is the fantastical side of this universe where they all conglomerate. They have a school that the children go to, they of course have their own businesses down there, while she is also partnering with this Reaper to try and solve this crime, because the two names in his book currently are the big crime bosses of the gang of the downstairs. I think you can see why I'm likening it to Skullduggery Pleasant if you've read any of those books. It is adult, so if you are not, be aware going in. You can read what you like, I'm not your mother, but be aware. But it was engaging, it was fast-paced, I was absolutely obsessed with it. It is so well done, it's the first book in a series, and I am so excited to see more, because dear God was this book good. So good. Like, Obviously, like I said, I'm behind on this for NetGalley. I didn't pick it up because it's a little bit bigger. It's like 400 odd pages and I couldn't squeeze it in anywhere. So I forced it in this month and I'm so glad I did. This book is already out. You can buy it. I had a fantastic time. And then my final book of the month was another amazing one. This one is also from the folks over at Book Break, so thank you very much. And that is Green and Deadly Things by Jenn, Lyons. So in this book we're following our main character called Mathake? We call him Math. He gets shortens to Math. And Math is trying to join the Order of Idyllic Knights. They have powers essentially and they use them to save people from evil monsters and creatures that are in the world. They go and kill them and they save others from them. And Math's power is plant-based, it's nature-based. He seems to be able to manipulate the plants and the roots around him. Of course there has to be an instigation point in this book, so at one point he ends up... what can I tell you? Okay. So monsters begin to wake once more. Math is involved in this and there ends up being a young woman of a similar age and they end up working together because the idyllic order that he's been trying to join is not all that it seems. Everything is going wrong all across both that country and the neighbouring borders and they are trying to save everyone essentially from coming under one totalitarian rule. This is really well done. The magic system in here is a lot of fun. I loved the relationships in here and how they developed and I feel like it was done really naturally and really well. There were points of miscommunication but they were handled so incredibly well and I just couldn't put this book down. I was having an absolute blast with it. Another fantastic read. I'm not sure when this one comes out because this is a finished copy. It must say somewhere. Let me get the press release because you guys... 5th of March, so this is out. As of the video going up, 5th of March, so this is out. This is just such a great read. I've never read anything from Jenn Lyons before. I've been curious but not enough so to pick it up and now I would like to, but I also need more. I really like this. This was so good. I love nature-based magic and the relationship was just built so well that you actually genuinely care for it and also care for the other relationships that are around the partnership of them working together. Don't get me wrong, I obviously expected to like this, that's why I requested it, but I thought I was just going to squeeze it in and just have an enjoyable read at the end of the month, and instead my final read of the month was amazing and I loved it. I had a ridiculously good month in February. I usually am like, oh, what's the favourite book? I'll pick one. I had too many this month. I really can't pick. Like, I am thinking of at least 4, 5, 6. It was a really good month. So instead of your favourite book, or even least favourite, because none of these were bad, I guess I have a least favourite, which is The Crustacean. Not because it was bad, just because it wasn't as amazing as the others. Either The Crustacean or the Discworld one, the really long title, Collegiate Casting Out of Devilish Devices. Those two, because neither of them were bad. They're both 3-star books. But everything else was much higher, so please do let me know if you have read any of these books down below in the comments. I would love to hear your thoughts about them, whether you agree or disagree with me. I'm always here for the bookish conversations. If you'd like to see what I am planning on reading in March, you can watch that video up here, and if you'd like to see what I end up doing with my reading and my thoughts on those books, then please do hit the subscribe button down below, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!